Dragonball and Sailor Moon are two of the biggest and most inspirational franchises throughout the world. Inspiring countless, shows like Naruto, Yu Yu Hakusho, to shows that were influenced over in America by this. It's inspired and cultivated, an audience of millions across the globe from every single country. It's been translated numerous different times. And with shows of that sort of magnitude, the only thing you can really do in those situations, especially when it comes to fan creations, is people, for a love of a project, will inspire everything from erotic doujins or fan comics to audio dramas and movies and live reenactments and cosplays. But what the key word there is fan. What about if someone's so-called creation is so trying to be close to canon, but so bad it's created its own infamy? A few years ago, me and my friends ventured into a DVD store. And that we came across a creation known as Sailor Moon and the Dragonballs. A weird and bizarre and so badly drawn and animated creation. It led me down a rabbit hole of how the hell was this created. I'd like to introduce you guys to the story of Sailor Moon and the Dragonballs. The 1990s was kind of a weird era. Anime was still sort of a new frontier getting brought over to the West. Sure, we had the likes of Speed Racer and other shows of that sort of caliber. But it wasn't really until, the late 1980s where the likes of Robotech, which was an amalgamation of 3 different shows that had Mark Hamill as one of the voice actors in it, to the likes of Akira, which was still kind of in the underground scene at the time. But it was in the early 90s, Viz Media was trying to bring over anime and manga by creating a magazine called Anime America. They had all the properties at the time, and it was a great way to introduce people. You had Ranma and Half, Dragon Ball, Sailor Moon. What could possibly go wrong in that situation? Then comes Rising Sun Productions. Rising Sun Productions was the adult entertainment company based out of Shibuya in Tokyo, but had an office, or supposedly had an office over in the West in America. Their job was basically importing and exporting of adult entertainment over to the West. So I'm presuming it was an export and import company at that stage. There is not really a lot of information besides using the Wayback Machine and seeing some of the titles that they have sold on their website. This is where the story kind of gets interesting. So Rising Sun Entertainment actually had a lawsuit with Viz over Anime America, who basically Rising Sun owned the rights to the domain at the time. And when the two were originally brought to court, the state of California decided to go over to Viz Entertainment. And as sort of a common way of sort of around the issue, while they did side for Viz, they created a loophole that Rising Sun were able to keep their website, but they had a redirect for Anime America. That way that both sides can still be happy. This is kind of the story of the most infamous creator. Rising Sun, one of the key people and one of the people that was in charge of the lawsuit at the time was David Pinevia. And it's his story alone that, when you look into it, it gets stranger and stranger throughout his career. And this is only the first step, and the first time that he comes across with Japanese animation. And it's not going to be the last. Shortly after the lawsuit was officially settled, David Pinevia went from the west coast of America over to New York City, where there he was trying to create basically two different companies. One of them was Web TV. Web TV, people that may not know of this, was in the early days of dial-up internet. They were trying to create their own version of streaming television at the time. Unfortunately, it was a fantastic idea for the time. Unfortunately, I don't think the technology was there to actually keep up with the idea within itself. And the other issue is just the niche nature. A lot of web TV was not for a broader audience. Even the likes of Crunchyroll, while they're entertainment platforms, and YouTube in itself, they're entertainment platforms, they have a broad appeal, even for like a niche industry. Web TV, in his particular, his web TV was about live arts and entertainment, which was still kind of a new idea at the time. Now, his other company was a productions company by the name of Media Marketing Group. And their job was to basically create properties. They're well-known masterpieces such as Sailor Moon and the 7 Dragonballs, Ninja Sex, Sailor Moon and the 7 Dragonballs 2, and various other properties. Now, were these properties any good? We're going to break down one of their pieces.
これは何？ついに結婚することになったのね。もうそんな時なのね。彼はとってもスケベな人だから、この結婚が良いこととは思わないわ。あなたの言う通り、私はそうは思わないわ。あなたはただ彼を素敵な人だと思ってるだけだわ。
あいつらが結婚するなんて信じられねえよ。あんまり嬉しそうじゃないな。
Now, one of his pieces created in 2002, Starballs, was brought to court by none other than the most well-known directors over in the West, George Lucas himself. Lucas Entertainment brought the media marketing company to court over the name Starballs. At the time, George Lucas was fanatic about his IP at this point. There was major lawsuits involving tons of different companies and entrepreneurs. Anything that might have been inspired by Star Wars at the time was being brought to court. And in this particular situation, George lost. The reenactment of the lawsuit kind of went something a little bit like this.
All too easy.
Now, after the counter suit happened, initially it was decided that the properties were so far and different between, Star Wars, one of the most well-recognized products at the time, and this bare basement level animation. Yes, of course, David was going to win this too. So after his final production in 2007, he decided to move back to France at that point, where this is where things start to take a weird turn. He was a soap maker from a short period of time to to pretty much up until recently, and his other one is animal shelters. But there's so many accusations with him over the years, and the charges that have been brought up with him over the years as well. It's only safe to sort of go into each one. In 2008, he was brought to trial over illegal possession of firearms and ammunition. And from 2008 onwards, things start to get a lot darker. Warning, if you do decide to actually look into any of this information, be forewarned. There is a lot of photos and video evidence of animal abuse and neglect that will be extremely graphic and upsetting to a normal person. From there onwards, there's been numerous cases, over 80 counts, and reports of hate speech. He's been brought to court over threatening someone with a firearm, vandalism of the veterinary clinic, running 2 illegal animal shelters, which he did actually spend 5 months sentencing only just recently, and finished up only a few months ago. So anything from animal neglect to hate speech to threatening with a firearm, illegal gun possession. And there's still a lot more questions that really haven't been answered. Now, I didn't actually bring this up in the beginning of the video, is his connections with Rising Sun, and there's been a few companies that he's been involved with in Thailand. Now, stated on his CV at the time, his online CV, it does say that he's doing it for animal shelter, or for animal welfare needs. And I kind of question his ethics due to the fact of so much negligence and animal abuse that's in his own shelters over here in the West. I'd hate to see what he's doing with animal shelters overseas, where probably things are a lot more relaxed as far as animal welfare rights. So it kind of really does show you that there is so much that really has to be looked into at this point. But that's kind of the interesting thing about doing these searches, coming across these little bits of information, a completely, while dark history is extremely important, that we should always do our own due diligence and own research when it comes to these situations. Especially for something that is, the property is still around. This particular show is licensed by Right Stuff Entertainment and is owned entirely by Right Stuff at this point. David has foregone all rights to the individual property, and if you're curious to see how bad this particular device is, I'm going to include a link in the description. So what do you think, guys? This is just a sort of a story video that I wanted to sort of get across to you guys while my laptop is being fixed up at this point. So until then, make sure to like and subscribe, and tell me, what do you think? What's the most interesting thing that you guys have ever come across? Cheers!